Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm David Davenport, and today is Saturday, October 22nd, 2011. We are gathered at Mountain View Cemetery in Fresno, California, to honor the memory of Sergeant James Barker of the 74th Illinois Infantry and his wife Eliza. Sergeant Vaughn of the 6th Iowa of the Civil War Reenactment Society will now begin the festivities or the commemoration with a word of prayer. Vaughn?
I am the resurrection and the life, saith the Lord. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. I know that my Redeemer liveth, and that he shall stand at the latter day upon the earth. And though after my skin worms destroy this body, yet in my flesh I shall see God, whom I shall see for myself, and mine eyes shall behold, and not another. We brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. The Lord gave, the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord.
Thank you, Sergeant Vaughn. James Barker was born in Norwich, Ontario, Canada on September 2nd of 1827. On May 20th of 1848, he married Eliza Snyder at the Wesleyan Methodist Church in Dundas, Ontario, Canada. James and Eliza had 4 children: Charles, Ted, Lucinda, and Edwin. The Barkers moved to the United States in 1856, shortly after the birth of Lucinda, their daughter. They settled in Pecatonica, Illinois, a village in Winnebago County on the Chicago and Northwestern Railroad. This line was built westward just south of the Wisconsin border and would eventually reach the Mississippi River. James was a blacksmith, despite being only 5 foot 6 inches tall and never weighing more than 125 pounds. On August 5th of 1862, James enlisted as a sergeant in the 74th Illinois Infantry, a 3-year regiment organized and mustered in at Rockford, Illinois, a month later. He and his comrades in arms were sent to war almost immediately. On September 30th, they arrived at Louisville, Kentucky, and became part of the Army of the Cumberland. James and his comrades then marched to Nashville, Tennessee, where General William Rosecrans ordered an advance southward to Murfreesboro. There, at Stones River, the 74th fought rebels in snow and sleet on the last day of December 1862. Losses among the 74th were 8 killed, 35 wounded, and 42 missing or captured. The second day of the battle, January 2nd, 1863, the 74th skirmished on line of battle all day, and Union forces regained much of what had been lost 2 days earlier. The 74th then went into winter quarters, ultimately driving rebels from Tullahoma and Chattanooga. On November 25th, 1863, the 74th was involved in the assault on Missionary Ridge. It lost 14 killed, 39 wounded, and 6 missing, almost 60% of the 340 men who fought that day. Despite these losses, the 74th Illinois was then deployed in the advance on Atlanta in 1864. At Kennesaw Mountain on June 27, 1864, the 201 men fit for duty suffered 12 dead, 38 wounded, and 13 missing. James was among the 38 wounded. He took a bullet which shattered his 7th rib on the right side of his rib cage, and it exited through his right side, through his armpit. He was treated at hospital in Nashville, then Jeffersonville, Indiana, and finally at Mound City, Illinois. For the next 2 years, fragments of bone worked their way through his skin. The muscle damage and scar tissue was so extensive that he could not raise his right arm fully. Nevertheless, he was returned to duty in March of 1865. he was discharged 3 months later at Nashville, Tennessee, and was immediately pensioned and began to receive $6 a month. James returned to Illinois, where on March 28th of 1867, he became a naturalized citizen of the United States. In 1879, the Barkers moved to Elmdale, Kansas, where James continued to struggle with poor health. Dr. William Hibben of Emporia determined that James was permanently disabled because the scar tissue from his gunshot wound had left him unable to wield a blacksmith's hammer. He also suffered from rheumatism, brought about by standing in the frigid waters of Stones River, Tennessee, almost all day on January 1 of 1863. An affidavit submitted by a comrade reported that the clothes of the men became soaked, but due to the presence of the enemy, no one was allowed to have a fire for 3 days. During this time, James was taken with rheumatism and left lame and unable to walk normally for the rest of his life. In 1895, Lucinda Barker, James and Eliza's daughter, and her family moved to Fresno, California. James and Eliza, then living in South Dakota, soon followed and established a home at 337 San Pablo in a residential district north of downtown. Despite the change in climate, James's health continued to deteriorate. In 1905, he was treated at the National Home for Disabled Volunteer Soldiers near Malibu in Los Angeles County. There, the doctors determined that the tissue surrounding his ribs had thickened so much that his right lung barely functioned. His right shoulder and his right arm were now completely lame. He was unable to perform any manual labor and was completely dependent on his pension from the War Department, which fortunately was raised in 1907 to $20 a month. He returned to his wife in Fresno, but unexpectedly she died on March 17, 1908, from the effects of heart failure brought on by influenza. James died just 2 weeks later, on April 2nd of 1908. According to the records of Atlanta Post 92 of the Grand Army of the Republic, to which James belonged, Eliza and James were buried side by side in this, the GAR plot. The graves of neither were marked for 103 years, but the grave of William Clark, here, who was buried less than a year later, beside James, was marked almost immediately. And this made it possible to determine exactly where James and Eliza are placed. Headstones were then ordered for Eliza by Cheryl Walker, whose daughter is married to a direct descendant of James and Eliza, and for James by me and Elaine Tosh, the manager of Mountain View Cemetery. And today, we are pleased to reveal these headstones and to honor the memory of this man and his wife. I now call upon Ron Vaughn to form the honor guard and to perform appropriate volleys.
Squad, ready! First squad, A, fire! Second squad, A, fire! Third squad, A, fire! Recover, arms. Shoulder, arms.
And I now call upon Andy and Steve to play taps.
Present, arms.
thank you for your kind attention. The commemoration is over.
Okay, break ranks. Break ranks. March.
Thank you, gentlemen. I salute you.
Jenny.